What is up, YouTube? Welcome back to my channel. It's your boy D Dyson. So what I wanted to look at was watch heavy spoilers for the ending explained. He's going to do a full season recap, and then I'm going to review it with my thoughts. So let's check this out. Euphoria season 2 ending explained.
Welcome to the Heavy Spoilers Show. I'm your host Paul, aka the guy whose puns make you rue the day you found the channel, and this video we're breaking down season 2 of Euphoria. The ending has a lot to unpack from it, and throughout this video we're going to be going over the full season and talking about what we took from the final few scenes. I want to get straight into it, but full spoilers ahead, so if you haven't had a chance to check it out, then I highly recommend that you check out now. Make sure you hit the thumbs up button, and also subscribe for videos that have the crown jewels of bad jokes. With that out of the way, thank you for clicking this. Now let's get into Euphoria. Okay, so Euphoria has had a bit of a weird release schedule, and due to the pandemic there were several setbacks. Season 1 released all the way back in 2019, and it's been a long 3 years waiting for this one to drop. We finished that one up with Rue relapsing after Jules left her in order to go off to the city. The aftermath of this was explored in the specials, and we pick up this season with Rue accompanying Fez and Ashtray to a drug deal. For the first part of the video, I'm going to be breaking down everything that led up to episode 8, but if you just want to see us talk about the finale, then timecodes will be linked below. Now, due to Ashtray killing Mouse, they have a new supplier who forces them to strip to check for a wire. This is somewhat mirrored in the finale when they attempt to shift blame after Custer tells them the police found a body. It's a really gripping introduction, and instantly you realise how much of a dark path that Rue is on. Inspired by the woman that's running the show, she slowly wants to change the game and become a dealer herself. Alongside this storyline is Cassie, who ends up hooking up with Nate at a New Year's party that goes out with a bang. Couple of bangs to be fair, and the problem with Cassie is that she's the best friend of Nate's ex Maddie. Hey, they were on a break! Because of this, there's a tense scene where she hides out in a bathtub whilst Maddie comes into the bathroom she and Nate were just making out in, and I kinda hope that she was holding her breath because it stunk like shit. Now Cassie has a lot of unrequited love for Nate, and early on their relationship takes a lot of focus. Nate also has to deal with his father Cal and the recording of him and Jules. Concerned that it could get out, he ends up going straight savage, and he brandishes an unloaded gun at Maddie. After the beating that Fez gave him, there's a lot of talk about brain damage changing his personality, but to be fair, the guy was always kind of a douche. Add to this, Cal lays it all out literally, and we see Nate start to become darker than most of the cinematography in the series. In a strange twist of fate, though it could end up ruining everything his father had built, he gives the recording to Jules to let her do what she wants. Now Jules destroys it, but come the end of the season, we learn that Nate had multiple copies of it and that he handed them over to the police. Now in Rue's life, she meets the duplicitous Elliot, and she and Jules confront their past decisions. Elliot is a massive enabler to Rue, and he basically manipulates their breakup by telling Jules about Rue's addiction so that it can cause issues with the pair. Whilst this is going on, Rue has the terrible idea to become a drug dealer herself, and she secures a suitcase full of them to sell. Jules then tells Rue's mother that she's using again, and this leads to a major intervention in which the suitcase is flushed. She's urged to go to rehab by her mum again, which she's hesitant to do, as the drugs are a crutch and lifeline, as toxic as that is. In addition to this, she's always used Jules as a support mechanism, but she ends up exploding on the character. She also reveals the truth about Cassie and Nate, and yeah, I don't know why there was such a big problem, because hey, like I've said, they were technically on a break. Now unable to pay the money back from the suitcase, the softly spoken dealer locks her in a room and dopes her up with morphine. Luckily she escapes though, and she reconciles with Ali, who she finally accepts help from. Now this kinda takes us into Lexi's play, which portrays Nate in a negative light. Due to Lexi being Cassie's sister, he dumps her, and Fez doesn't have that good of a time either. Discovering that the police are close to unearthing the truth about Mouse, the cracks start to show, and that takes us perfectly into episode 8. Opening at Fezco's, Custer tells them the police found Mouse's body, and though Fate initially tries to shift the blame, Ashtray kills him in a move that mirrors the murder of Mouse. Fezco was on his way to Lexi's play, but the lifestyle choices that he's led means he doesn't get to attend or be brought into the overall show of it. Metaphorically, the play is very much retelling the events that have happened in the seasons and what they've cost. Titled Our Life, the characters in many ways are forced to confront their happiest and darkest moments, and this leads to them either being better off or going down a darker path. Now this is very much reflected in Nate, who of course dashed off last episode. He ends up exposing his father, and though it is somewhat of a positive path for him, it's very much bittersweet. Cassie returns, and as the play starts to shift into its third act, the show does too, and Cassie belittles her sister in front of the entire audience. There was of course the brilliant scene last entry in which she broke down in front of a mirror before putting on a facade and smiling like the Joker. She returns empowered by the embarrassment and confronts her, making the play even better. It was already Broadway level, especially for a high school production, and now it's a true tour de force. Now on stage, the pair fight it out, which of course highlights the drama that's in their real lives being stranger than fiction. The cherry on top comes when Maddie calls out Cassie for her dating Nate behind her back, even though, like we've said, they were on a break. Now at this point, everything kinda blows open, much to the audience's delight. They of course represent us finding entertainment in people's misery, and the entire thing becomes farcical, with us getting a royal rumble whilst everything goes off. As Maddie chases Cassie out the auditorium, the show continues, and initially it gets played off as being all part of the act. Now this is important as, due to the stylistic choices of Euphoria, it of course often goes from sincere scenes to full-on music videos, and because of this it's very difficult to tell the difference between what's performative and what's real. This is very much reflected in the play, which becomes somewhat a piece that blurs the lines of reality between being art and what's happening to the characters. It's high-level commentary on how people end up so wrapped up in their own drama that they eventually end up doing things to heighten it so that they become important. Lexi of course very much felt like she was in the background, and thus she created the play to somewhat allow her to be at the forefront. However, she wasn't really ready for the real-life drama that came with it. It perfectly surmises the show as a whole, and how things are often glamorized to stop the characters from seeing the true ugly face of them. Rue became a drug dealer because she was captivated by the idea of being a quote-unquote female boss. However, she saw that the true side of this was dark and depraved, and much like the play, just wrapped up in an illusion. Lexi later says that she wanted the play to go a certain way, but that it's been ruined, which very much sums up the lives of the characters. They all had these amazing visions of what their goals would turn out to be, but they pretty much never happened that way, and their lives were ruined much like the piece. Now Rue then spots Elliot and recalls a couple of days earlier when she went to him and said that he might have accidentally saved her life. He busts out a song on the guitar like we used to dream of doing in high school to impress girls, and then asks her a truth or dare question. He asks if they can still be friends, and though we don't get an answer, the pair nod at each other in the auditorium. Back behind the scenes, Lexi commits to delivering the finale spurred on by the fake versions of those in her life. She's very much tied into the fantasy, but Rue gets a chant of her name going, which spurs her on to step out from behind the curtain. Back with Fez & Co, he realizes that the police are coming and tells Ash to surrender so that he can stay behind and take the fall. It perfectly brings the opening of the season full circle, and though things don't go that way in the end, it shows how much Fez cares about Ashtray and how he very much takes responsibility for the life he led him into. Ash doesn't listen though, and he grabs all the guns he can in order to face down against the SWAT team. Now this idea of someone facing things head on with a gun that leads to police intervention is mirrored in Nate, who rides out to his father with a revolver in hand. He asks Cal if he's found the happiness he was constantly searching for, and says that he's realized they both get off on hurting people. They're as destructive as each other, and though Nate could have given his dad a way out, he reveals that he kept copies of the video and has tipped off the police. Throughout we've seen flashes of him having dreams of his dad sexually assaulting him, and if you recall, the first season had a scene about him discovering Cal's tapes. On one, he made a man call him daddy, which has clearly affected Nate his entire life. His mother was baffled by the change in him because he was such a happy boy, but he became a dark and vengeful kid after this moment. This entire thing very much reveals how Cal defined his life, and though he says he doesn't think his dad will ever change, he does. Nate could have shot and killed his dad, but instead he called the authorities, even though it would ruin his father's reputation and make his business impossible to inherit. He manages to walk away, but unfortunately Ashtray doesn't. He ends up firing at the SWAT, and accidentally he shoots Fez, who gets blood all over the letter that he had for Lexi. After bullets rain down on the bathroom, Ash ends up playing dead, and though he takes out one of the officers, the others don't let him live. Ash is shot and killed, and it's by far one of the most tragic stories in the entire show. Now from here we jump back to Rue's eulogy for her dad. This ends up being brought across into the play, and alongside this we see the final moments in which Lexi and Cassie visited their father in hospital. This is accompanied by the first time Rue OD'd, and Lexi visited her in the hospital. This shows how these two moments of her being forced to take care of everyone has also made her bear the brunt of their trauma. Because of this though, Lexi is always there to listen and support people, and we get an awesome scene in which she and Rue find common ground in the bad times that they've faced. Now after the final scene of the play, Jules finally reconnects with Rue. She tells her that she loves her, but Rue doesn't say back, and instead she kisses her on the forehead before walking out the theatre. It's very much a sign of her saying goodbye, and it's unlikely that the pair will ever reconnect again. In the closing monologue, we hear Rue say that Jules was her first love, and there's a lot of emphasis on the was. She tells us that she stayed sober for the rest of the year, and that she only thinks Jules was her first love because she was high for most of their relationship. It's a very empowering way to close out the season, and she states the words of Ali, who said, "The thought of being a good person is what kept her trying to be a good person." Now this is important as it's also what kept her sober. The thought and meaning of being sober is what kept her in line, and it was actually easier than returning to the drugs. Because it meant more for herself and those around her to stay clean, this kept her on the right track, and in the end it's an awesome way to close out this arc for the character. The feeling of actually achieving sobriety was more powerful than the high from drugs themselves, and she's finally found acceptance and managed to step away from the toxic things in her life. Whereas season 1 culminated with Jules leaving Rue, Rue has now left Jules and she's escaped the toxic cycle that the pair were trapped in. Much like the first season, we close out with Zendaya singing a song, but whereas the last time it was tragic, this time it's very uplifting. It's a great way to close out the season and the episode itself. Now before we get into the review part of the video, I've dropped the winners of our February competition on screen right now. We're going to be running another one this month to give away some Blu-rays, but I haven't had a chance to pick them out yet because I only realised today that it's the end of the month. But if you want to get locked into that, if you want to win this prize that you don't know what it is, then just like the video, comment below and make sure you subscribed and sell me your soul. Haha, gotcha. Now as for how I feel about the season, I thought that this one pretty much improved on the first one in every single way. The storylines, editing, and general grungy but glittery feeling are ramped up, and it elevates the show to a lot of new heights. Now what the series does is that it perfectly portrays the dangers of addiction, but it does this beyond just drugs and shows it in almost every single character. Along with Rue and narcotics, you have Cassie who's addicted to Nate, Cal who's addicted to sex, and so on and so forth. We really watch through the characters as they pretty much destroy their lives due to this addiction, and though a lot of the stories feel unconnected, they weave this thread throughout everything really well. Now on top of this are the incredible production values that the show has. The cinematography and editing are next level, and often at times, the show spirals off into what feels like it could be a music video. At the end of each entry, I went on Google, found the songs used in every episode, and ended up just listening to them on their own because the music choice is next level. They also do a lot of stylistic things that help make the story a complete blast to get through. The first entry opens with a Fez and Ashtray origin story that shows us not only how the ladder got his name, but also how they got in the game. The grandma is barely in the season, but she makes such an impression early on because of how well this is all put together. Episode 4 as well does an excellent job in its opening, showing us what Rue and Jules think their relationship should be like. We get parodies of Ghost, Titanic, Snow White, Brokeback Mountain, and a lot more. It just elevates the show to new heights, but I do have my criticisms too. I think that the way that the series is put together with a heavy reliance on narration can be a bit of an issue at points. We kinda jump around a bit too much at points, and it can lead to stuff feeling just like a montage instead of a distinctive scene. The specials were great at just keeping us locked in the moment because they didn't really have the ability to jump around, and sometimes that frantic feeling can be a bit detrimental. Now that is a minor criticism, and I do think that the performances here really stop it from falling into just feeling like we barely get any time with the characters. The actors let you know who the characters are with very little because their performances are just so captivating. Euphoria on the whole is that too, and though I have my nitpicks, things work really well to tell a story that you just get lost in. There's such a tone and atmosphere to it where it just feels like a piece of art at points, and all in all, I don't have that many bad things to say about it. The overall show is as psychedelic as the subject matter, and it works on pretty much every level for me. Even if you don't like the story, I think the way it's produced still keeps you engaged, and this was another brilliant season. All in all, really enjoyed our return to the world of Euphoria, and it gets a 9 out of 10. I'd of course love to hear your thoughts, as 9 is a pretty high score, and I know people are going back and forth on it. Make sure you leave them in the comments below, and if you want something else to watch, we have a full breakdown of Peacemaker linked on screen right now, and also another video.
So I truly agree with basically everything he said. I really love this season of Euphoria, and just the season finale. Like, spoiler warning, I know you already seen it through here, but when Ash shot it out with the cops, I was like, man, dude died savagely, lived savage, didn't take no prisoners. That he was just, a 35-year-old male wrapped up in a 12-year-old body. And dude was just beyond his years, and you could tell from, and I love the intro to Euphoria, which gave Fezco and Ashtray their origin story with their badass grandma. I was like, man, grandma's been laying in bed the whole time, from last season and this season, but you finally got to see what type of lady she was, of how and why Fezco and Ashtray are the way they are. And I loved it. Besides all the penis shots, I totally get it. It's a reverse, of seeing women nudities for so long. You're just going to see male genitalia throughout. That was something different, and I tell myself, I'm like, I'm getting to the point where we're all desensitized to it. We're all grown. Hopefully, kids really watching this, but I feel like we're all grown to understand this is what it is in life. But it was so many things about this season that I really, really loved. Even with Cal's explosive moment with his family, I was like, oh shit, and he just kept going. I seen his origin story from his best friend in high school, and just seeing how he was, and I was like, yeah, he definitely has a lot of torment, because his wife is a beard, he's secretly gay, he's down low, and just he's a fiend. So ever since Nate was a young kid, he discovered his dad tapes, and it really traumatized Nate because he always knew what his dad was. And even, in that scene with Cal and his family, even his other son that we rarely even know about, and just, talked about his porn history, I was like, Jesus Christ. So they all get it from basically him and his mom, because, their mom, showing how she was when she was in high school, always down to do it no matter what. She was just like that. And so it worked. It worked out, but he was just really on another level with it. Another explosive scene was Rue, when she's going through those withdrawals coming from Lori's house, and how Lori, that calm drug dealer, and I was like, geez, this is going to have a lot of ramifications later on in later seasons of what Lori's probably going to do to Rue. And that's when we're going to get some really, really sadistic stuff coming from Euphoria, to be like, man, this stuff is hard to watch, but we're still watching it. Because what Lori was telling Rue, and Rue was getting that suitcase from her, was basically, man, if you don't pay up, man, there's other ways to get, you're females, other ways to get money out of you. I'm going to make sure that, I'm going to turn you to a sex slave. And I was like, man. And for Rue going over there to get in that shot of morphine to kind of sober her up, I was kind of like, man, they're going to lock you in here. And she was like, yep. That's how she kept, Lori, like, I can tell when I first saw you, you're going to be in my life for a while. You're always going to come back. You're always going to be in debt to me. And I was like, man, it's about to get real with that. But another was Fezco. I love Fez. I really, really love Fez, man. Fez is just that chill dude that, like I said, Angus, you play a phenomenal job playing Fez. I really, really hope Angus Cloud plays Mac Miller. And I told you guys I was going to get his name right by the time we got done with all this. But Angus, you're a dog when it comes to Fezco, because he highlighted the savagery, he highlighted the coolness, the calmness, and he highlighted at any given moment, Fez can click off and be like, he could turn to his grandma. So I love that portion. And then you also saw the soft, gentle love side from Fez when he really was just head over heels with Lexi. And I love those scenes with Lexi. I feel like I saw a meme where it's going to be 50 Cent and 21 Questions, how Fez going to be in jail talking to Lexi. Like, that's really how it's going to be. And I was like, that's going to be dope. Not realizing that I think her name is Maude Apatow, or Maud, and Angus are a couple. So I'm just telling myself the chemistry is definitely there. I love that. And I felt like they didn't really highlight enough about Kat and what Kat is going through, only because the introduction of Elliot, which is another, like, a druggie with Rue, and how he was just, like, basically just that massive manipulator, and really going off into Jules and Rue's relationship, ruining it, and then at the end, basically Rue finding sobriety. Now, the thing that really broke my heart, man, was when Rue really went off on, can't think of his name right now, but Coleman Domingo's character, as far as him trying to help Rue this whole time, and she just really messed over him. And I was kind of like, man, Rue, that's low, man. Like, that's so low. You'll almost make this man relapse. And because he's so hurt. But it's at the same time, I seen that salvation of her wanting to get clean. She had to call him. She had to call him, you know, like she had to call him. And I was telling myself that was a powerful scene, that she couldn't even open a Jolly Rancher. And I was like, dang, that's what addiction does. Cassie messing with Nate, we're kind of like, oh crap, like from the New Year's party, we're just like, dang. When Rue came through, that was another explosive scene. She's just running because she's really jonesing. She goes into the house and just, man, why are you messing with Nate Jacobs? And I was like, oh, everybody was like, oh my God, like Rue just set it off, setting bombs. And then, you know, you have the finale of Lexi's play. And I love the play because it highlighted everyone's mess and just how she was really just the onlooker for everyone, and how everyone was really in their destructive habits. And she just was kind of just in the background, just watching everything unfold. And she put it into what she loves the most, which is her theater, her art. And I was like, man, you a chip off the old block from your dad, Judd Apatow. So I really, really love this season. He gave it a 9 out of 10. I gave it a 10 out of 10 because behind Game of Thrones, this is the second most watched thing on HBO. And the anxiety kept us on edge. What's going to happen next? I cannot wait for season 3. I know they're taking quite a bit of time off because of hearing about all the things that was going on, like the long set hours and the disagreements with Stan Levinson. So it's a lot going on, but at the same time, we can't wait for it to come back. Give us 2 years. I feel like everybody's mental going to be right because it's about to really get real, and I'm here for it. So, you guys enjoyed my reaction to Euphoria Season 2 Ending Explained, full series recap, and my personal review of the season. Subscribe to my channel, post a comment down below, and like the video. It's your boy, D. Dyson. Peace.